They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
What is up, everybody? My name is Chris McLean. This is Hater Radio. This is a college football media brand brought to you by YouTube, X, Instagram Live, Facebook on my personal account, but right now not on Facebook's business account that I have for Hater Radio. So as of right now, those are all the formats you can reach us at. We are, like I said, a college football media brand. We cover specifically UCLA, USC, USF, like I'm wearing here today, and Florida. And we're going to cover today the week 0. It's going to be a real quick recap because there were only a couple of games. There was the SMU Nevada game. FAMU was playing. I can't remember who FAM was playing. But then, of course, what we're going to get into the most, because I'm not even going to talk too much about the SMU game. The SMU game was like it was back and forth. Nevada was up for a little while, and then SMU ended up coming back in the fourth quarter. I think they scored 16 straight unanswered and were able to win. It was a close game, and SMU is lucky to survive. It was on the road in Nevada, so I think they won by like 1 point. But either way, what I want to focus on in the limited time we're on tonight is Florida State, Georgia Tech. So Florida State loses 24-21 to Tech at a last-second field goal. This game, it was close the entire way. It really was. Like, Florida State scores first, Georgia Tech answers. Florida State scored a field goal. Tech scored a touchdown. Florida State scores a field goal to tie it because they had a 2-point conversion on that first touchdown. And then Tech later scores a touchdown. Florida State comes back, scores a touchdown. And then Tech, last second wins it. I actually did call in my prediction that Florida State or Georgia Tech would score 24. So I was right on the money on that, but I was not on the money with Florida State's offensive output. They ended up, I said like anywhere from like 31 to 27. I was just off by 3 points, 7 points. So it wasn't that far off. So I was pretty close to the total. And then, what I think I'm proud of is the fact that it was a 1-score game and it came down to pretty much who had the ball last, which I basically said. I said that Tech would have the ball last and FSU would get a stop. So it was theoretically essentially that, but it was a tie game. So, if Florida State could have forced overtime, they had a chance, but couldn't stop Tech, couldn't stop the run game. I mean, the talk all coming up to this game from Florida State reporters and people that have been talking on their side, their fans on X, Twitter, were talking about how the D-line was so special. Marvin Jones Jr., number 11, Peyton, all these guys were studs. They were going to come in and make this difference in the game. And honestly, it wasn't that, like, they were so lackluster that was the reason why Georgia Tech was able to move the ball. Their offensive line is good, Georgia Tech, and they were a very great running attack last year, one of the best in the ACC and one of the best in the country. And I think primarily what is lost in what is the analysis of this game is the fact that Florida State probably has a good line, but the fact that they were going up against a team that doesn't have a traditional drop back passer who passes it like 30 times a game probably hurt their like overall scheme, because they're probably geared towards more on second and third and long, pinning their ears back and going after the quarterback. Well, that never really was the case. There were very few third and longs, and Georgia Tech ran the ball a ton. They had like 190 yards on the ground, and they just they basically dominated this game on the ground because Florida State only had 98, and Georgia Tech didn't throw it that much. I think they had like what is it? Let's see, Haynes King had 16 passes. That's nothing. Like for like today's game, today's college game, 16 passes is quite low. And considering on the flip side, DJ Ungalele, I think that's how you say it. I think I'm saying it right now. I'm hearing it a couple times yesterday, so I think I'm finally saying it right. DJ threw it for 27 times. So clearly 27 times 16 is quite a vast difference. That's like a whole like third of a game difference. But they didn't need to throw the ball because they were running so well. And I will say the tone was set right away. First play of both the first and second halves were huge gash runs. The second half one, especially, that one was like a monster. I think it was like 30, 35-yard run. And, you know, this Tech team, they really were sound. You know, the run game was just proficient. And I will say probably the biggest difference in this game was the fact that Georgia Tech's defense came to play. Considering how bad they were last year, they were in the like, I don't know, hundreds in the defensive rankings last year, and they were terrible. But this year, on a new ground, new like, you know, guys coming in, and they took advantage of it, and they were dominating that Florida State offensive line, which was supposed to be a huge strength of Florida State. And Georgia Tech was making a lot of monster plays all game long. I mean, they had so many plays where they were in the backfield and making stops on Florida State's run game. And, you know, it's credit to the Georgia Tech defensive coordinator because they really put a stop to the run game, which I think if Florida State's run game had gotten up and running, pardon the pun, but like up and like moving like in a like the right direction, it would have been the difference in the game if they had gotten like 150 yards on the ground, because they looked really good on that first drive. It was like I think like an 8-play drive, and they're just moving down the field. They had like I think 1 or 2 passes by Ungalele, and it was like the rest were runs, and they were gashing them. And I was like, oh, this might be a long game. But the Tech defense answered. They had 7 tackles for losses. Looks like Florida State didn't have any, which is crazy. I'm like amazed. Oh no, 3. Sorry, I thought there was some. But Florida State didn't have a sack. Like I said, very limited ability to because of how few dropbacks there were. Tech had a sack. There were no turnovers the entire game. That was crazy. Tech did drop the ball a couple of times on like a bad handoff, and then Haynes King had on a snap near the end of the game that could have been costly because it was, I believe, second down when they were driving to get the field goal with the time running out, and it was a bad snap. He had to pick it up. He got some yards back, but luckily on the third down they were able to get like 10 yards back on the completion. So that was huge. Yeah, so no turnovers, which is amazing for teams playing in their first game of the year. And 4 penalties. Florida State had 1, and it was that holding penalty at the end of the half before they hit the field goal. So 4 penalties is like remarkable for teams just starting their season. Usually you see like something where it's like, 8 and 10, like 18 total penalties, but this one was very low. I'm not going to make fun of him. I know I do it on Twitter, whatever. I think it's just, I do it on Twitter because it's engagement and it is funny. But like when I'm doing the show, I'm not really like wanting to sit here and like make fun of them. I don't think that does any good. Like, I don't think I need to laugh at them, like whatever. Like, this video, I'm trying to just be as objective with this show as we can be and just be as like, look, like this is the show. We're trying to like talk about this in a professional manner. I know I make jokes on on X, and it is a big joke, whatever. Like, I think it's just fun. It's just like trying to get engagement. I mean, I got a tweet that went pretty strong on Saturday, and it wasn't even that major of a thing. It was just like making fun of the FSU Barstool account about like the field goal kicking. And it's like, whatever. The rest of my tweets the rest of the day didn't go that well, but like that one was huge. But whatever. Let's move on. So try to be objective and talk about this as the best we can. So Florida State for the rest of the year, this doesn't bode well for them. Like, clearly there are some issues here. Defensive line is going to be a struggle, more so than that they thought. And I didn't talk about it yet, but the linebacking core was very suspect. I have not been the biggest fan of Randy Shannon when he was the linebacking coach at Florida. I was never really a big fan. He struggled there to get recruits and to get really any kind of momentum going there. Whatever, it is what it is. I don't know if they're going to be able to find an answer there because they don't seem to have playmakers in that position. DB wise, I don't know yet because Haynes King wasn't dropping back that much. So they won't see a really good quarterback until I think Notre Dame with Riley Leonard and then maybe Cam Ward as well. Oh, actually at SMU quarterback too. So those three, they might have issues then, but that the rest of their games, they're not playing traditional drop back passers. So, and the rest of them don't have that strong a talent. So I don't know. This Florida State team, they obviously do have a chance because it's early. This is the first game of the season. A lot can change over the next 12, 13 weeks, and they could, easily get back right into the playoff mix. I don't think they're strong enough, though. Like we said, starting of the year in our season preview, that they likely are going to lose at least 2 to 3 games. And if they already lost one to start off the season, there's a really good chance they could lose at least 2 or 3 more, which I think that is going to happen. So look at it like a 9-3, 8-4 season as of now. I think I started off with 9-3, but maybe it's more like 8-4 seems likely because they're not better than Miami. I don't think they're probably on equal footing with Florida and DJ Uiagalelei. He's definitely a lesser of against Mertz. Graham Mertz looks way better than DJ Uiagalelei. So there's an advantage there. And Florida can run the ball too. You think that Georgia Tech can gash you. If Georgia Tech's going to get that, Florida could probably get that as well. I mean, I'm just being objective because Florida has a really good running back room with a lot of young guys that are uber talented and, so look out there. But yeah, they play Duke. They play not Duke. They play, Duke's going to be a challenging one, but Notre Dame, Miami, those are going to be struggle games. Clemson, SMU, Memphis. I don't envision Florida State having a great year. And if that's the case, if they're 9-3, 8-4, they're not going to get in the playoff. I think they'd have to go 10-2. So literally the only way Florida State gets in is if they only lose one more game. And with that mix of teams on their schedule, I don't see it as possible. It's possible, but not probable. Sorry. I wanted to clarify that. Yeah. So FSU, whatever, man, it is what it is. I think a lot of their fans have written this off as, the first game, whatever, but it's there's a lot of issues there. So hopefully they can figure it out, but it seems like recruiting has been a struggle. They really seem to focus on transfer portal and not homegrown guys in high school. So we'll see. I mean, maybe they change their tune and start trying to focus on that more. But right now they do have a better class in Florida. They've got, I think, the 12th or 13th class, but it's still early. A lot of things can happen. Yeah, so that's that game. The SMU game was, let me see real quick. We'll just do that and then we'll do some housekeeping and get out of here. SMU. Oh, they weren't ranked. And then the ACC, which is crazy. Okay. Oh, come on. Sorry about this. 1 second. Okay, SMU. Yeah, 29-24. So it wasn't a 1-point game. It was a 1-score game. Sorry. But yeah, they outscored them 16-0 in the fourth. And, they were like a 20-point favorite at least. And it's crazy that they struggled so much. But, it's first game of the year. It's a team like Nevada on the road. Nevada in like the last 20 years has had some years where their teams are pretty good. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could have beaten them, which it was close. Like in the GameCast win probability on ESPN, Nevada had a high chance of winning in that second half up until like SMU scored to go up 29-24. So it clearly was a close game that SMU probably should have won by at least 2 scores. And I think that's what I had the total at. I think it was something like 41 or 38 to like 14 or 17. I mean, even more than 2 scores. But I don't know. Is it a bad sign? It could be, but getting a win is huge. So, like, you want to start off the season strong. Like Florida State lost. So, like, clearly a loss is going to be in a worst case scenario. But, I don't know. Maybe this team is better as they go forth. They always say the second week of the season, the second game of the season, you always improve that much more than any other week. So, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see with SMU. Their schedule, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Yeah, they got an easy one next week, then BYU and TCU, but then they have Florida State and Louisville. The rest of their schedule after that is really easy. So they could really have a run if they get through these next couple of them unscathed, which I think is possible. But it's definitely going to be difficult because the Florida State game is going to be hard. The Louisville game, as of right now, I think it'll be difficult. Braum has them pretty solid footing right now. The last year, especially after getting the ACC championship game. I don't know what TCU, if they're going to have a bounce back or not. I'm curious to see what happens there. BYU, I haven't looked into them as much. So it'll be interesting to see how BYU fares. But if SMU gets on, like, if they go 2-2 in that stretch, maybe even 3-1, the rest of the year is really easy. Stanford, Duke, Pitt, Boston College, Virginia, Cal. That's really easy. They could easily go 6-0 in the back half. And if that's the case, if they're 2-2 on the front half with these hard games, then they're 10-2. I don't know if they're going to get to the playoff with that kind of record, considering their non-conference is pretty weak. But they could maybe get to the ACC championship game. Okay, so that is the show. Brief week, just those 2 games. I know FAM played. I didn't talk about it too much, but they won, I think, pretty convincingly, I think. There was like New Mexico State played a game as well, and I think Hawaii. But largely what we talk about is the major games, the ones affecting the Power 4 conferences, and specifically ones that have playoff implications and major rivalries. So that's what we'll talk about besides the teams we cover. You can reach us at haterradio.com for all of our articles, which we'll have a slew of articles this week. We've been working on a bunch of them, season previews for all the teams we cover, and then plus something about an article about the playoff coming up and just how my thoughts on that. And then so you can reach us there. You can reach us at Twitter X, which is hater_radio on Twitter X and Instagram and TikTok. Facebook is Hater Radio CFB. For YouTube, it is at Hater Radio. That's the show. My name is Chris McLean. It's great to have college football back. I'm so excited for this stuff. I'm excited for this season, and I look forward to doing this show because Wednesday starts the real show. Like we're going right into the look ahead and the preview every week. So, buckle up, everybody. It's going to be a great one. It's the first year with a 12-team playoff. Every one of these teams that we're going to be talking about has a legitimate chance at getting to a playoff. So there's going to be a lot to talk about every week, week in and week out. So I look forward to it. Yesterday was a great game. It was a blast to watch. And I'm looking forward to these games coming up because, this weekend is a huge game with Florida and Miami. Huge game, monster, considering already Florida State has an ACC loss. Now, for Miami to get out on a good start would be huge for them, especially trying to get to the ACC championship game and even further into the playoffs. So that's the show. I'll talk to you guys on Wednesday. Have a good one. Later, y'all.